So indeed, the question of identity becomes very important in our societies. And recently I had a discussion with our residents, and I was saying that perhaps autism now many times is considered as an identity. And many so young colleagues say, this is crazy, this is crazy, this is things that say sociologists, but they don't know what is autism. We know what is autism because we are psychiatrists, and we have not to accept these crazy things, etc., etc. Okay, but perhaps this is not so simple. And you know, when people say that I am autistic and this is me, if they say that, you have to consider that possibly this is true. You know, because they are the people who say what they are. And this is not because we are doctors that we have the truth. And so, indeed, this is a big question. This is a big question that we have to... Milika already introduced the question of identity. In fact, I realized recently that identity, this is like being identical. And there is behind a very big question, am I identical to myself? And of course you could say, if I am me, so I am identical to me. This is just obvious, yes, but are you identical to who you were yesterday? No, you were not the same person. Because you have a brain that changes with time, even your cells change, some die, others arrive, you are no more the same person. Okay, is it a big problem? Perhaps not. You mentioned about development. Are you the same person as when you were 1 day old? Of course not. You are definitely not the same person. Of course not. And when you will be 80, you will not be the same person neither. And so, what is our identity if we change? And many philosophers have discussed with this point. And this is very difficult to give an answer about that. This is very difficult. When you wake, when you get up in the morning, you wake, and I am sure you have experienced a couple of times that during 1, 2, 3 seconds, you don't know really who you are. You know what I mean. You wake up and where am I? Especially here, I am in a hotel. When I wake up, I am no more in my room. And so there is not my wife. And so during 1, 2, 3 seconds, and suddenly, okay, I am myself. I am in Belgrad. Okay. But so, and this is exactly the same with the general anesthesia. Perhaps you have not experienced that, but I had one time, and this is very strange because they give you some drugs, and poof, suddenly you do not exist. You do not sleep really because there is no dream, nothing like that, and just 1 second after, you wake up. In fact, it took 1 hour or 2 hours, and this is exactly the same reaction. Am I myself? And so, so of course you could say, okay, this is funny, but this is a detail. This is a detail. No, this is not detail. This is in fact essential on a societal point of view, because if you are no more the same person, if you kill somebody, but if the day after you are no more the same person, you can say, oh, this is not me who killed the person. This is another person. I am not the same. So I am not guilty. And so the society could not accept that. And even within a family, imagine you marry to a man and 1 year after, this is not the same man. This is problematic. If you marry, you are supposed to live with the same person during many, many years. While in fact, we know that when you marry to somebody, 10 years after, often it is no more the same person. And it raises many issues within the family, and some person divorced because in fact they have changed and they cannot live together anymore because they are different. And so you could say that's life, yes, but for human being we have kids, and we have kids from 0 to 20 years old. And so if parents change all the time, we have to be quite the same for the kids. This is very important for them. And so in our society, to be the same during some time is very important. And so I mentioned philosopher. Locke is likely to be the philosopher from the 17th century, is likely to be the first philosopher who would tackle really seriously the problem, and in science fiction because of transhumanism. You know, transhumanism, some people consider that you could put your brain, your mind in a computer, or you can clone yourself in many other person and put your mind in many, so you could be many of you. And so what is your identity if there are many of you? If you kill one of them, you know, so there are many movies about that, many novels, and this is very funny to understand if you are really the same when you are cloned with the same mind, etc., etc., etc. So, big discussion. But to say it simply, language is crucial with that, because we say I is me. And this is very strong. This is very strong. And there is I in nearly all language, more or less. And so I mean me, and this is always me. And I am, you are Milika, I am Bruno. This is the first name, Bruno Falissard, this is my, and I think that in the planet there is only one Bruno Falissard, and so this is my identity, because it means that I am always the same, because I have this name. 10 years ago I had this name, in 10 years I will have this name, so I will be the same person, because I have the same identity with words. Okay, what is funny too is that there are paradoxes with words and identity. For instance, you meet a friend that with a good friend when you were adolescent, and when you come back home in the evening, you say to your partner, "Oh, I met Mark. This is incredible. He has changed, but he is still the same person. He has changed, but he is still the same." You know what I mean? He has changed, but this is a contradiction. You cannot change and still being the same person. But we say that. Why? Because obviously in 10 years he has changed. But phenomenologically, in the relationship, you meet the same person. There is the same core. And this is the same person. Okay. And so I suggest a definition of identity that is a defining narrative. Identity is a defining narrative. These are words, and words are stable with time, and so they are always the same. And so we have to find words that define ourselves, and this is what makes us permanent in time. And even after our death, we will have an identity, and you will be able to say, it was Bruno, and he is still here, even if I am dead. And of course there is a body, prints, fingerprints, eyes, you know, even the face, etc., is a part of our identity, and this makes that I am able to recognize people. Okay. Okay? Another thing is that if there is identity, it is about yourself. And why identity is so important at the moment. In fact, for a long, being somebody was not a problem at all for people. This is only very recent that being somebody is important. Even perhaps you don't realize that before people have no idea about what they look like because there was no mirror. And so people, they could see other people but not themselves, excepted rich people. There are mirrors for 6,000 years, but only at the end of the 19th century does everybody have mirror. In the past, it was not a problem to know what you look like. It was not a problem. So being somebody was not a problem. And as you know, today this is exactly the contrary, because with that, there are mirrors, but there is that also, and you do selfie all the time. And so self is very important, and there is a book that is published very recently, The Sovereign Self. Today, everybody is unique, everybody is a king or a queen, and this is exactly what we face. This was personal identity, but there is another kind of identity, which is collective identity, and I think at the moment it is even more important. I will use an evolutionist perspective, evolutionist in terms of Darwin, and according to this perspective, you know, in our societies there is a tension between competition. You know that about reproduction, there is a competition to find the best mate. Still in our society, still today, there is a competition. And collaboration, because we are a community and we are more powerful if we are not alone. And this is true also for many mammals. And so there is a need to have competition and collaboration. And this is an antagonism. And we have to organize that. And the question is how to organize that. One way is delosing. To touch everybody. We shake hands. We shake. I touch you. This is a way to say, I am your friend. I like you. I am in competition with you. But I like you. I touch you. Gift. You know, Milika, give me some water. This is a gift. This is a way to say, I am your friend. And so, I will have to give you also something. I am going to speak to you, and this is a counter gift. And you know that gifts and counter gifts are very important in all human societies. This is an anthropological invariant. Casual conversation, very interesting. Linguists have shown that when we speak during a meal or in the tube or in a bus, etc., we don't transmit any information. There is no information. We speak only to people to say, I am not an enemy to you. This is yes. When you take a drink or a coffee, you speak about the weather, for instance. No information. You know, everybody knows the weather. But you speak about the weather. This is just to be with we are together. Of course, we are in competition, but we have also to collaborate. The problem, this work for small communities. But if you consider Serbia, you are about 6 million?
6.5.
6.5. If you are about 7 million of people, how do you want to shake hands, to give gifts, or to have casual conversation with all these people? This is not possible. This is not possible. And nevertheless, you have to be a community. And so this is tricky. And so, we have seen that yesterday for those that were there. You have mythological narrative. That is, you have stories. You have also a language. But you have stories that explain who you are in Serbia. And this makes a community. And this is the opposite to the Tower of Babel. You know that the Tower of Babel, they tried to do things, but God was angry about that, and he decided that you are going to have different narratives, and it didn't work. And so I have this proposition, a collective identity is an element of a symbolic nature, this is a narrative, that exerts a centripetal force, a cohesion within a society. Within a society, we need narrative to have the feeling that we are all together, because we cannot shake hands, we cannot give gifts, we cannot do these things. We need a narrative to be all together, and this is a collective identity. This is a collective identity. Okay, but in practice, how do we do that? In all countries, once upon a time, religion were used for that. You know, you go to the church. In the Orthodox Christian, it is also on Sunday, or yes, on Sunday morning.
Liturgy, yes.
Yes.
It's not mass; it's liturgy.
Liturgy, yes. On Sunday morning, you go to the liturgy, and this is a way to be all together. And so, and as you know, religion are very important, but no more today. It was 200 years ago, yes, but you know that with time, religion is decreasing, and decreasing. There has been science. Science is the way to have a common narrative. The earth is round. We all know that, except some people. Except some people. This is the beginning of a conflict. This is so. But science, we have water inside ourselves, and blood, and we have a heart, and here we are in a medical department, and so we have a common narrative about what we are. This is very important. But as you know, today science is also not considered by everybody as a narrative that is legitimate. In many countries there is a history. You have a history. You have a history. And this is a very strong narrative. But we have found that in many, when you have historians, they show that most of narrative coming from history are fake. In fact, it was a creation. It was a fake. And so history is very frail in reality. We don't know really how was our country 100 years ago, 500 years ago, etc. This is not so sure that history corresponds to truth. Television was a very strong way to have a collective identity. When everybody sees the same channel 2, 3, or 4 hours a day, at the end you have a collective identity. This is what says the TV channel. And many politicians use that for them. Okay. Religion, science, history, television. Television, there is no more television in many countries because of the internet. You know, you have Netflix, you have social network, etc. And so today, what do we have as collective identity, as narrative that we have in common? Law, we have a law. This is a narrative. And you have a law in Serbia, and this is for everybody. Okay. This is not funny. It exists. Money. This is of a symbolic nature, and indeed it structures society also. And you have rich and poor people, and it belongs to an identity. And of course, you have your language. It structures your collective identity. Language and numbers. This is because Milika said, "I am a mathematician, and I always want to remember that numbers exist." Okay. There is also something which is new. Why it is new and it is important. It is important because law, money, and language, this is not so funny, you know. This is a little bit dry to create an identity. And I propose that what is called neo-Marxism. You know that since 10, 20, 30 years there is some kind of neo-Marxism with a comeback of domination between class in Occidental country. The white and the black, the man and the woman, the rich and the poor, the Muslim and the other, etc., etc., etc. This become quite important. So the notion of class domination is more important than a couple of years ago. And being a victim now is considered as something very important. And this is new. This is likely to come after the Vietnam War. You know that before the Vietnam War, there was no PTSD. PTSD did exist, but it was not a disease. It was just considered as being weak. And after the Vietnam War, they discovered that this guy had a mental disease that we know now. And they were a victim. They were soldiers, but they were also victims. And after that, many people discovered that being a victim, if you are alone, this is not a good news. If you are a victim, and we are several people to be a victim in the same way, this is something strong. We can say that we are a victim. This is a shame. We are dominated by the other, and we do not agree with that, etc. Being a victim is a possibility to be somebody. There is even some kind of paranoid mechanism of defense from time to time with that, you know. I am unique, and everybody do not recognize that I am unique, and so this is because of them. I hate them, they hate me, etc. There is some kind of paranoid defensive mechanism about all of this, and this creates now many collective identities, and we have seen that during the COVID pandemic. You know, many people who had some kind of being a victim of the vaccine, being a victim of the misinformation, etc., etc. Okay. Now, what about mental disorder? Because this is what is interesting for us. Well, if you take the example of what is called neurodevelopmental disorder, you all see what it means: ADHD, autism, writing disorder, etc. You can consider, in a way, that ADHD, it is defining narrative. I am ADHD. I am like that. This is what I am. And this is a way to belong to a dominated class and to become a victim. And this is true. Many of our patients are a victim of the school, of the society which wants that kids are very calm and not impulsive. And this is new. 200 years ago, it was no more the same thing. And you are a dominated class because you are like that and you are considered as a bad guy. So you are dominated. So in a way, you can say that ADHD is an identity, an individual and a collective identity. This can seem very shocking, but because for us, ADHD, it is a disease. This is not an identity. This is crazy. This is a disease, even with a genetic vulnerability, with symptoms, with treatment. There is no genetic vulnerability of an identity or symptoms or treatment. This is different. So there is a tension. And here we have to come a couple of times about words, big words, that is disease and patient. And we have to come back to what is a disease. If we say that identity are not disease, okay, but what is a disease? The problem is that we have no clear definition of what is a disease. And I propose you two definitions, one from the US, a medical dictionary from the US, one from a French dictionary of medicine, and you will see that it is complex. For the American way, you need to have a etiologic agent, group of signs of symptoms, and an anatomic alteration. This is curious. 2 amongst 3. This is very curious because if you need an anatomic alteration, so all functional disease are no more disease in a way, and in particular psychiatric disease. And group scene of symptoms, everybody agree with that. But group of scenes, identity are group of scenes. And etiologic agent, and we see in the French definition, we have also symptoms, known cause with this etiology, and this is interesting, appropriate treatment. That is, a disease is useful only if it can lead to a treatment for patient. This is quite pragmatic. You know, if you define a disease and there is no implication for treatment, this is worthless. Okay, but you see, for the first, etiology or cause, this is metaphysic. What is the cause of a disease? What is the cause of leukemia? What is the cause of HIV? The virus? No. It has been said by sociologists that the cause of the HIV epidemic was in the diamond mine in South Africa, where there were thousands of males with 10 or 20 prostitutes. And the virus did exist for decades. And because there were many males and 10, 20 prostitutes, there was a spread of the HIV pandemic. And this was the cause. And why not? The virus is a necessary condition of the pandemic, not necessarily the unique cause. So the cause of disease, and this is true also in psychiatry, as you know, we have cause, of course. A PTSD, you need a trauma. So this is a necessary condition, but you also need a genetic vulnerability, a family, etc., etc., etc. So the notion of cause is metaphysical. And so this is not, if we want to do science, we have to forget cause. And so, at the end, what is the disease? With that, irritable bowel is not a disease, migraine is not a disease, etc., etc. So in practice, we don't really know what is the disease, and in particular, where is the patient here? There is no patient in the definition of a disease. This is crazy. Our job is to deal with patient, not with disease. If we define disease without mentioning patient, it is that there is a problem. And so, what is the definition of a patient? Here again, we do not agree across countries. Even the words patient in English means that you belong to the healthcare system, implicitly. And in other language, you have other words for that. Anyway, and even in child and adolescent psychiatry, in particular, what is the definition of a patient? Often we have a family in front of us. And who is really the patient? And this is my proposal. A child and adolescent psychiatric patient, it is a community that calls for help, and this is very important. They need to call for help for some suffering, of course, in the mind or behavior, because this is psychiatry, and locate this suffering in use. And we are going to see that this is very important. This is very important, and it corresponds quite to what we see every day. Now, we come back to the question of NDD and identity. Look at closely a young patient, first time consultation, that has ADHD or even autism. Where is suffering? Who is really the patient? most of my patients that I see for the first time for ADHD or ASD do not suffer. They do not suffer in their life. This is the family who suffer because they are different, because they have problems at school. But themselves, they know that they are different. They are sad to see that their parents consider them different and that their parents are sad, so they are sad because their parents are sad. But inside themselves, they are young human beings and they don't understand what happens. Which is not exactly the same situation with less young patients. Less young patients, they have experienced school, society, etc., etc. And even, and we told that yesterday, even some of them now, and this is new, they come and they say, I am ADHD, I am ASD, which is completely strange because they suffer and they come to see you and they push in front of you an identity, which is a narrative. While in theory, this is exactly the contrary that should happen. They suffer, and this is our job to understand this suffering, to put words, symptoms, disease, and to say, you have this diagnosis. And now this is exactly the contrary, and this is why you can consider that it is a narrative. And that, of course, we can raise the question, so NDD, are they disorder or are they difference? Well, in fact, it depends. It depends, and we have to have this in mind. Okay, when you have a patient with ASD that comes to see you and say, I am ASD and I would like to discuss that with you, okay, this is not the most severe form of ASD. The most severe form of ASD, they cannot say anything because they have no language. And in this situation, you cannot say that this is a problem of identity. This is not a problem of identity because the level of impairment is so important that there is no autonomy. They need us just to eat, to wear themselves, etc. So this is not definitely the same thing. So this is my conclusion. NDD, are they identities? As I just told you, not all of them, of course. When there is a rupture in the human existence because of a phenotype like ASD or even ADHD, some patients are so impulsive that they cross the road and they have accident and everybody hates them when they are 4 years old, and so life is no more possible because this is really a problem. There is a rupture in the existence, and so we have to say that these are patients with disease, and this is not a problem of identity. And we say yesterday that we have to propose new names for that, to forget ASD, ADHD, and to say you have a syndrome and or a disease with a treatment. So not all of them, but on the other side, why not? Why not? And I think in a way it's a progress to consider now that for the milder form of this neurodevelopmental disorder, they are identities, because our patient feels them like that, they feel them like that, and so we have to acknowledge that they are like that. They want to be seen like that, okay? This is good because there is no more internalized stigma, and you know that a big part of stigma in psychiatry comes from the internalized stigma. And when it is your identity, there is no more internalized stigma. It can give sense, and this is also where you have seen that, I am sure, some young people that discover that I had problems during years and I didn't understood why I had this problem, and I have read on the internet, I have ASD. This explains my problem. It gives sense to what I am. And it makes them in a better situation. Okay, this is good. But what I see also is that it can be misleading in giving sense. What I see now is that I see patients who suffer in their adolescence, and they come to see me and they say, I suffer and I have discovered I am ADHD. This is because of that I suffer. And here is the problem. You suffer. This is the reality. If you say so, this is reality. And I have nothing to say about that. You say you have this ADHD, your identity. Why not? I accept that. If you say that there is a relationship between both, be cautious. Be cautious. Causality is something tricky. Perhaps you are right, perhaps you are wrong. And we will have to discuss about that, not to be wrong in how to deal with this suffering. But this is open to discussion, and thank you for your attention.